I appreciate the ability to have discussion on these topics, and I thank you, Mr. Corman and Mrs. Booth, for your insight.
Yes, I just wanted to refer to our list of older policies. There's a total of 12 policies that the last time they were reviewed was in 2012. There were some that were redone on August 6th in 2012 and some that were redone on August 20th in 2012. So as we move forward with our planning for the policy committee, I think we should address those soon and get those reviewed and updated as far as dates go.
Can you send me a list of those numbers?
Absolutely.
All right. Previous meetings are closed. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hearing no negative or abstaining. Meeting adjourned.
Donna, when is our next policy committee meeting scheduled, please? Thank you. It's fine, you can check. Next policy committee meeting is scheduled, is that in March? Yes, March 17th will be the next policy committee meeting. Do you agree with that, Mr. Plummer? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, since the policy committee meeting has been adjourned, we will move to the committee of the whole for January 20th, 2025. I'll call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Do we have any public comment for the committee of the whole meeting at this time? I hear or see none. We have some presentations because of the weather and in service being remote today. We made the decision not to have any students out this evening, so there will be no FBLA presentation tonight on the presentations, but we do have a guidance presentation. Mr. Oldham to present some information from the guidance department, chapter 339. So, Mr. Oldham, thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Thank you. Right before we get started, just since I was ad-libbing a little bit back there, I wanted to just pull up one other piece of data from the Pennsylvania School Boards Association. Each year, the Pennsylvania School Boards Association releases a State of Education report. And so in 2024, as has been the case for the last several years, the number one reported issue that school districts are facing is student mental health. And lest you think Big Spring was like a weird outlier with any kind of surveying or tools we use, 55.3% of school districts in Pennsylvania report using some kind of benchmarking tool like that to assess student need. And so, again, like I said, I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. That's just some background information. Big Spring is not a strange outlier. Every school district across America is trying to figure out how to best support student need right now. And there are lots of really robust conversations about that. So I hope that if the discussion about student mental health is solely focused on this survey, if you decide to go one way or another, whatever, that's fine. Let's just make sure we continue to support our kids. And I've been very grateful for the support you've shown our department, and I hope that support will continue. And so, not that everything is kind of in a little box, but we'll put student mental health over here, and we're going to talk about career development, which is another big part of what school counselors do and a huge component of what school districts do to try to support human development and preparing kids for the world after graduation. Every so many years, the state requires, I believe it's a 3-year cycle, requires a report on the K-12 career guidance plan that a school district has. It's Chapter 339 of the Pennsylvania Code. And this was our year to upload this document. And so I want to just highlight what some of that looks like. Dr. Sanders and I and our department have spent the last year revising and updating this process that outlines what we here at Big Spring do to ensure we're complying with several important state requirements as relates to career development. If we could go ahead and click to the next slide. please. There's no clicker, so I'm assuming that I'll just say clicker. So I put up some memes here because, oh, we've got a clicker. Look at that. Wonderful. I put some memes because this is how humans seem to communicate in 2025. The last thing we want any of our kids to do is get to the end of this whole, K to 12 journey and realize, wait a minute, like, now what? I have no idea what comes next. Or they have an idea of what comes next, they step out and they realize they're grossly unprepared for that. We've all been in different positions, whether it's a job we've had or a volunteer experience or something we said we would do that we just really didn't like. And that's okay whenever you say, hey, I'm going to volunteer for something, you do it once and you step away. It's another thing to feel like you got stuck into a job or a career that you've invested time and money in. And now it's really kind of hard to get off that train when you've potentially gone on to college and invested tens of thousands of dollars and years of your life. And so our goal is to prepare students for the best possible next step after they graduate, fully recognizing that human beings are fickle creatures and we love to change our mind. We just want to make sure that students aren't making costly decisions as relates to time and money after they graduate. And so school districts across the state are required to deliver certain kinds of information and activities that demonstrate that we are helping students make those decisions. The three things related to our 339 plan that I want to highlight for you tonight are here. Just like we have academic standards for math and English and science, we also have academic standards for career education and work. And so there are certain benchmarks as we go along through school, strands of standards that students are to be achieving by 3rd, 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. The state outlines what those are. And so our 339 plan articulates where we do some of that instruction and those activities along the way. In addition, your 339 plan at the school district level is expected to explain how we are exposing our students to the opportunities available to them through our Career and Technical Center, like Cumberland Perry. And so I'm going to highlight what that looks like here at Big Spring. And then finally, as part of our Future Ready Index, which is the public-facing report card that people can look at to see how Big Spring is faring in comparison to other schools, we are required to collect career artifacts from students as they develop a comprehensive student career portfolio along the way that documents all the activities and exploration they have done. And so to talk about each of these things in a little bit more detail, those standards I mentioned are these four things here: career awareness and preparation. That might be learning about the different kinds of jobs that are out there, learning about the different kinds of post-secondary education, whether that's college, an apprenticeship, joining the military, awareness, and if I want to go to college, what do I have to do to prepare myself for that? Career acquisition is all about how you get a job. How do you create a resume? How do you write a cover letter? What tools do you use to find job openings? Those kind of things. Career retention and advancement is all about how you succeed at work. What are some skills and competencies that are important at succeeding in the workplace? And then finally, entrepreneurship, that spirit of entrepreneurship. I don't know how else to describe it without using the word. How do I become a self-starter? How do I use initiative to my benefit in the workplace? So these four standards have been in place since, I believe, 2006. The Pennsylvania Department of Education is in the process, working with the State Board of Education, at revising these standards, and we will likely see a rollout of that in the next year or two. But these have been the standards we've had in place for again, since 2006. Additionally, like I said, this plan has to identify how we expose students to Cumberland Perry. In 7th grade here, we do a digital tour and activity with our 7th graders to let them know about Cumberland Perry Career and Tech, the different shops they have, the different activities, the different kind of things they can do there. In 8th grade, we take our students there to actually walk the grounds, visit a couple of shops, have a chance to talk with teachers there to see what the actual opportunities look like. And students can begin to apply to Cumberland Perry in 8th grade to start in 9th grade. So that's an opportunity for our 8th graders. And then in 9th grade, the majority of our students will apply to Cumberland Perry in 9th grade to then go in 10th grade. We have Cumberland Perry come up to do a presentation for our high school students each fall. And like I said, that's when most students are going to apply. Students go there. The shops are typically 3 years long. There's one or two that are only 2 years. but students then will generally be there 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. We have 120 plus students that go to Cumberland Perry each year, and so compared to other schools in the area, we are a very strong, supportive school of career and technical education, very proud of that. The only downside is it's a really long bus ride to get there and back, but other than that, great programming. We're really proud of our kids that go out there and do that. The third piece of this plan, and this is really, when I talk about we've been looking at this and revising it, this has really been the biggest transition point and change. For the last several years, we've used a program called Naviance to house all of those career artifacts. And those are things, students do an activity and then they write a reflection about what that activity was like. Naviance was their electronic career portfolio. We have transitioned to Smart Futures, which the board approved last year, and has been going really smoothly. These lessons and activities are self-contained. The career portfolio is just substantially more user-friendly, both for the student, the teacher, for us on the more like administrative side of this. And so making sure that students are getting exposed to all of those career standards at each grade band in Smart Futures. So just to show you a little bit of what Smart Futures looks like, this was stuff we couldn't really see in Naviance. So each student has their career plan in there. As students complete activities, it becomes more full and rich with information. And so, you have a career goal. What kind of education do I need to achieve that? What are some schools I'm looking at that might be able to do that? If it's not something that requires college, then in terms of post-secondary education, what does that look like for me? All of that information is there, and then as we meet with students, because some of these activities are done in classes with teachers, we can say, talk to me a little bit about how that activity went. Your reflection said that this is what you thought about that thing. How does that align with what you're planning on doing? This helps us be more meaningful in the advisement we're providing to students about their career plan. So for example, what do these activities look like? Career development is a very long process, right? So when we talk about our earliest learners, if you look at some of the activities in like kindergarten, for example, one of the career standards deals with learning about your own preferences. Like, what do you prefer? What are your individual interests and strengths, right? And so helping them start to understand, like, what is a favorite food? It doesn't mean you don't like pizza and pasta. It just might mean, well, what do you like more than the other thing? Learning how to have preference helps you start to make decisions. And so students complete an activity where they have to kind of think through, oh, I don't know, what is my favorite color? What is my favorite food? Just to help get them thinking about what preference means. That advances more, obviously, as students become more cognitively capable. A middle school example, there's an activity called the Career Cluster Finder, where we talk about the different kind of ways careers can be organized. And so for this particular example, the student identified agriculture, food, and natural resources as the cluster of interest. It gives the student some information about that, different pathways within that cluster for work. And then the student completes a reflection. And so if you can see here, the student said, I chose this pathway because I like to work with animals. Great. If you like to work with animals, did you know you can get paid to do that one day? Awesome. How do we help you start to align yourself to a future that allows you to do something you enjoy that will actually pay you money to do it? And it's not just academic things like this. This is an example of a high school activity where a student reflects on work-based learning experiences. And so I really enjoyed this example because the student didn't just look at a traditional job. He was a farmhand. He said, well, this is some stuff I learned how to do there. These were the responsibilities I had. He also he reflected on a field trip he did for a construction career exploration activity. And he also included football up there, where again, he's thinking, okay, what are the different transferable skills I'm developing in all of these different experiences that will one day help me support my future? And so as students put these things together, at each benchmark on the Future Ready Index in 5th grade, 8th grade, and 11th grade, we have to report whether or not our students have completed a certain number of career artifacts. And so this would be an example of, yes, the student reflected on work-based learning, which aligns with these standards. This was the reflection. Cool. That's 1. Now we need 7 more if this is a high school student. In 5th grade and 8th grade, they need 6. And so Smart Futures is our portfolio that holds all of these things in there. This is something the student can access, something the family can access, something we can use to help, again, expose students to different activities and opportunities. If I know that a student is interested in agriculture, food, and natural resources, I'm going to help connect that student with Mrs. Powell to find an internship that might be related to this, or advise them to take one of our ag science classes at the high school. It helps us in our ability to provide more detailed, personalized career planning to kids. And so that's where we're at. This submission happens in the Future Ready Comprehensive Planning portal, and Dr. Sanders and I worked on submitting or putting that together in draft form, which is what you have on the agenda, I believe, later tonight for approval. So, any questions about this?
Thank you, Dr. Oldham, for your work and working with our students and helping them prepare for their future. Do we have any comments or reflection from the board? Mrs. Booth?
You mentioned the Future Ready Index, and as you know, our non-Title I plan that we recently approved shows that for career standards, the all-student group did not meet the career standards. And you did mention too that we recently changed to Smart Futures at our non-class our transition still.
Yes.
Are you seeing, and first, is there anything else that was done to move us in a better direction so we are scoring better with our career standards with the state? And also, are you seeing any differences or improvements already with the Smart Futures that we can already foresee or just expect that?
Sure. Yeah, so a good example of a difficulty coming out of COVID, one of the activities we would frequently do at the high school, we would have career speakers come in different career areas, and students would sign up to see that speaker. They'd come down, they would sit, talk, learn, and then they would write a reflection of that experience. Post-COVID, it was hard to get people to come in, and just with logistics and all, that was challenging. And then, as we've had students that have really started taking advantage of like Big Spring Cyber, a lot of the artifacts that would happen in the building just weren't as accessible to students that were learning in a cyber environment. And so what we have done in addition to adopting Smart Futures, which is much more self-contained, where you can essentially say, here are your 8 things, do them. And then it's all there. You don't have to show up in this room to talk to a speaker. You don't have to log in to a separate portal and do something over here. It's all right, self-contained. It's easier for the student to access all in one place. So that's one thing. Second, we have been working with our cyber coordinator, Mr. Nerone, at the high school to ensure that any students that are doing the career exploration class in cyber are also making sure to pull their artifacts out of that class and uploading them into Smart Futures. There was often a big disconnect between our cyber students and just the career artifacts we needed to collect. And that was something last year in last year's senior cohort. It was difficult because we would contact the student and say, you need to do this. And they'd say, well, where do I find it? What do you need me to do? And sometimes the activities were like, well, you needed to participate in the STEM Summit, but you weren't here for that and you didn't come in for that. So I guess we have to come up with something else. These are all self-contained, and that has also, so we've aligned the career exploration in cyber with Smart Futures, so that students that are doing, where we do a lot of these activities are in our 11th grade career project seminar class. That's also happening now for our cyber students. And so we anticipate seeing those numbers go up just because that was a population in particular that was difficult to give the same experience as our students in building. Again, some of the challenges too, just on that data point, it's difficult to do much of anything when you've missed 140 days of school. So as students are truant, it's difficult to have them participate in some of these things. Smart Futures, again, is as simple as log into this one place. Here are the 8 things. Just sit and work your way through them. They're not designed to be like complicated calculus. It's sit down, do an activity, watch a video, read a summary, fill out some information, and then reflect on it. And so none of it is designed to be, it's designed to be accessible. And so we see this being a lot more accessible even for our students who struggle with truancy, as we're trying to check boxes and say, hey, if you just do this, hey, come on, we're so close to the end. If you just complete these things, it becomes easier for them to check this box than it was in the older format, without sacrificing quality, because the activities are pretty legit. Smart Futures was designed by a Pennsylvania teacher out in Pittsburgh. It's a nonprofit. It's about the perfect kind of vendor you would ask for. They, again, don't go out trying to seek this massive profit. They're just trying to help kids learn and matriculate into the workforce efficiently. And so it's been going really well. And we had a meeting earlier today. I said, each level, elementary, middle, and high school, how's it going so far? Everybody says it's substantially easier than it was in our way of using Naviance and the Google Classroom format in our elementary buildings. And so it's it's doing what we hoped it would do.
Maybe this is the first question. The board approved guidance plan, number 3. Is your K-12 guidance plan approved by your school board? Yes. Enter the date when last approved by the school board, which was 3/20/2017. This report is due how many years? How frequently?
So there's been some changes in state policy or process with this. So in previous years, it was something that, I don't remember exactly what the cycle was. Generally, this is used by our career and technical centers to demonstrate, yes, we're making sure that schools are exposing kids to the opportunities available at Cumberland Perry or whatever their local career and technical center is for Perkins funding, which is federal funding. And so they need to show, yes, our local school districts have submitted their plans so that we can get this federal funding. So as far as like the state cycle and all that stuff, it was, I think at that point it was every 5 years, every 6 years. I don't know exactly what it was previously, but 2017 was the last time we formally had that done. Between then and now, so Future Ready PA Index came out in 2018, and then this new comprehensive planning portal came out within the last, 2 or 3 years. So this is our first year going through this kind of submission process in a very formal way as opposed to how it had been in the past. And so 2017 was the last time Dr. Sanders and I were able to identify there was a formal board action on what this looked like. And then this is our most recent time where the state said, hey, we need you to submit it, because there wasn't really a previous time we could identify where that deadline came up. And so
This will now be every 3 years?
I believe it's a 3-year cycle. Yep.
Is this something that we could bring to the board annually so we can see changes as they occur? Or maybe make this available to the public so they can kind of see, we have a little more transparency on these. A lot of these say, do you keep this file, do you keep this document? And as they're changing, as we're adding things, it might be nice for the public to see that. I know moving on to the school counseling calendar, there are some things on there which the board had just approved in the last year, and they're listed on here. I'm not sure if they were listed on here before that occurred, but they were done a few years prior to that. So as things are changing, if we could have something like that, it might be good for all of our state reports like this, that we have them in one central place on the website, which is a suggestion we talked about later maybe. But on the school counseling calendar, it looks like we have attached this document, which I have. I don't know if there's any changes that will occur between now and then. But it clearly says that this should be 12 pages maximum, and this document I have goes to 14 pages, so that needs fixed before we submit it to the state.
So I participated in a state training on this particular document here back in December, and even the templates that were previously used to train schools on how to create this document have shifted and changed even within the last year. And so what we have been told is, look, just upload what you've got. Like, don't stress about the page limit. Don't stress about the this or the that. Just submit what you have. And so now that we're able to go in and see this portal, which again, we've never previously had to utilize it, that's something that, if the state comes back and says, hey, we only said 13 pages or whatever, but yours is 14, okay, we'll then go back and we'll format it differently, I guess. Like, we can do that. This is not a gotcha moment, but from the state. And we have been told that some of that is not something to lose sleep over. And so in many ways, if there are things the state has to say about the formatting or, hey, do it differently, this is our first time doing it, and we're like, cool, then we'll adjust it. So if there's any concerns, we're going to adjust. Again, to your transparency comment, literally no secrets in the counseling department. We are here to be as supportive to our kids as possible. If people want to see whatever, that's fine. Again, but as to how many things we bring to the board or whatever, I'll leave that to admin to decide what they want to do with that.
You mentioned earlier about the small groups as one of the things on the counselor calendar, and there's not much of elaboration on the small groups and what is done during those. I'm just curious and kind of ensuring that things and materials that are used during small group sessions and any of these items are board approved and considered as curriculum use and instructional time. These are all things that have been brought and approved by the board at some point.
Brought and approved by the board. As far as specific details, parental consent always obtained, yes, for anything small group like that. I would have to know. A lot of times things like that are designed based on an emergent need. And so I would have to go back and look specifically at a particular small group. But any small groups activities that we do always involve assigned parental consent, saying this is, your child has been identified as potentially benefiting from a small group. Here's what it is. Would you like your child to participate? And if they say yes and sign it, then the student participates. If not, then they don't. But as far as like an official board approval for those things, I would have to look at specific instances.
About how many small groups are going now, and generally, how many students do you have in there working together?
Small groups tend to be a little bit more common in the elementary and middle school because they're also often linked to some of the MTSS sort of academic intervention process. At the high school, we do not currently have any small groups running. I don't know. At middle school, any small groups running right now?
Not right now. We did 3 in the fall, and we're hoping to do 3 this spring.
3 in the fall, hopefully 3 in the spring. Again, it's kind of an emergent need thing. So, for example, if a small group based around grief is something that is going to happen, I mean, you never want grief to happen. You never want people to lose their parents or lose a loved one or things like that. But occasionally you'll have cohorts or groups where, man, there are like 3 or 4 kids that have really just been hit hard in a given, month or 2 or a semester. And so it's based on emergent need. So it just kind of depends on what the emergent needs are as to whether those things are happening.
Number 12, does your school maintain a school counseling document that shows how each partner group, students, parents, educators, post-secondary businesses, community agencies benefits from and or assists with the delivery of guidance services? It goes through and I think it's just clarifying what these groups are.
Mm-hmm.
And we have yes, but I didn't see a document lining that out attached. Maybe doesn't ask to have it attached, but we don't see that document.
I want to say that on one of the pages in the actual state report piece, there's a spot where it's like students, parents, teachers, administrators. That would be the linked to that yes or no, I guess. And again, working through this state reporting portal, it feels a little clunky in places where it's like, well, if that's the question you're asking yes to here, shouldn't you just ask how there, as opposed to asking it 2 pages later? That's feedback that I will be happy to give the state on their reporting portal.
It's always so efficient.
Yes, good intentions, execution is always a little lackluster. But again, this 3-year cycle, the Future Ready portal, it's all somewhat new, and they'll work out as they're collecting feedback, and we will as well.
I have a couple of questions about the career resources document, which are somewhat personal to me as a senior parent.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the 3 different areas for scholarships listed. I kind of look back to my own personal emails because sometimes with this going on, the personal email gets elected, as we've talked about before. So I was actually unaware of this. Now, I already signed up and looked at scholarships.com independently without being prompted to do so from the school. And I also asked my senior, and we were unaware of these 3 options for scholarships. Now, I did have on my email, and I just looked at your site on the webpage, there's the local scholarships listed, but I don't see these specific spots, these specific websites listed on here. So is there, maybe that will be coming later, is there a time when these are shared with parents?
Yeah. So normally, the dilemma we have experienced with financial aid is that we would generally do a parent community night in the fall, usually in October, because the FAFSA, or the federal application for free student aid, would be available October 1st. Government, right? Government a couple years ago said, we're going to make it better. We're going to revise the FAFSA on a limited basis, and we're like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do? And so we do have that scheduled for January, here later this month, the 29th. I think it's the 29th. hold on, let me actually tell you this. And some of this is also like in flux as we learn information. The 29th, yeah, it's the 29th at the high school, where we actually have someone from FIA, which is the Pennsylvania Agency for Higher Education Assistance. They come and they do a FAFSA completion night with families, and we talk about scholarships and different things there. That said, most of our scholarship stuff for students is primarily going to start in the spring of their senior year, which feels really last minute, but the way America deals with funding higher education is kind of silly and made up anyway. A lot of the local scholarships that we have don't become available to apply for until the spring of their senior year. Stuff like FastWeb and scholarships.com are just free things that students can go and do right now. And again, that's sign up for an account and like click this button and you'll be entered into a drawing for a $1,000 scholarship. And you're like, that feels made up and silly. Why is this how we're funding higher education? But that's how a lot of those things are. It's really the very broad kind of just go out and apply for stuff. The more traditional, like, the Kiwanis Club scholarship that we know 2 of our kids are going to get every year, that stuff doesn't become available until the spring of their senior year. And TFEC, or the Foundation for Enhancing Communities website there, that's like the holder of a decent chunk of our local scholarships, but not all of them, because it would be too easy to have all of them in one place. And so as we collect those, we post them. Mrs. Roberts in the counseling office at the high school communicates a lot about those things as they become available. And so, good, yes. So she is on it. When those things become available, we push them out. We have been we've been hamstringed a little bit by the rollout of the new FAFSA, unfortunately, and that's made it difficult for us and for colleges as well to communicate anything about financial aid or scholarships in a reasonable, timely manner. So we're all right there with you.
The last thing, I think we may have discussed this another time together. The dual enrollment is on here. The Ship Start program is a wonderful program that our students can start taking advantage of in 11th grade and spend half of their days, school day there. And we, I had a student that was close to the top of his class. We ended up not doing that. We were kind of unaware that we could take advantage of that. Our 11th grade year somehow was buried in the 70-some page document. And mostly we're looking at the classes in there in the second half. So we've discussed this before, and trying to get that parent drawn into this planning process is, I know, an issue or somewhat of a challenge, but super important. So that being said, what are we doing to improve the awareness of both the HACC program, I really don't know much about it, the HACC program as a dual enrollment choice and the Ship Start choice. Ship Start is a great option because if they are already college bound, they can get their classes at a fraction of the price and get them under their belt, not waste time, and get them done. So, child 2, we learned a little bit of child 1, but but what are we doing as a school district to make sure parents are aware of this? Now, I know this may not be something that the teachers union wants to talk about because these students then are not here for half the day. So we're going to lose some of our student body to the universities. But I want to make sure that we are rising above that and making sure we are doing a good job as a district of telling our students about this. And making sure the top 10% of the class has a personal reach out. So yes, you should do this if you go to college.
So to speak to that, I would say from like the school's perspective, there was a period of time where dual enrollment was this strange, you're encouraging it because it helps the kid and the family for financial reasons, but it also kind of hurts us because if kids aren't here, then we're losing out on that ADM and our school funding stuff. Just in this last legislative session, that penalty to school districts was taken away, and so there is no penalty to the school district for a kid going and being full-time in dual enrollment somewhere, which was a nice win. We advertise this ad nauseum. We are constantly talking about, listen, we don't want you sitting in a class wasting time any more than anyone else does. If you're bored sitting somewhere, then find something to do. You can talk to Mrs. Powell, our career coordinator. We have dozens of interns each semester, each quarter. We have dozens of students participating in dual enrollment. If you want to save money and not drive to Shippensburg, you can do it virtually through HACC. If you don't want to do that and you're just looking for some opportunity to try a college level something, Lackawanna College is a new partnership we have. You can apply to do Lackawanna credit for taking one of our AP classes. We're constantly encouraging students to participate in these things. I know that in the junior year of high school, we as counselors will send out communications to families. We do like regular check-ins with students. I meet with all of my students once in the fall for just a general check-in for the year. What's your plan? How are things going? In the spring, we talk about scheduling. In the fall, I communicated out to families. You as the family are welcome. You're always welcome to come in, but specifically for that planning meeting, I'd love you to come in so we can talk about those specific things. And I've had a couple dozen families come in where mom or dad will come in with their student. We'll talk about their plan. And it's always, okay, if they're thinking about college, have you thought about dual enrollment? Have you thought about an internship? Have you thought about an apprenticeship if they're thinking more work-based learning experience? And so we communicate. I will never say that anyone communicates perfectly ever, and it's always something we can do better. I think we do a decent job at it, but we can always do better. So as far as communication, just getting people to come out. We used to do like a college and career planning night. I think it was usually planned in September. I could tell you the first couple years I was here, I would show up, sit in the auditorium, and maybe 4 people would come. It was a great, robust 5-person conversation, but it's just tough getting out. So we've explored some ideas of maybe doing some like recorded webinar sort of things, or doing some like web-based log into a Zoom presentation kind of thing. It's just kind of getting into that space where let's advertise it, let's see what people signing up looks like, and go from there. We bring people from all of these universities to our school. So Shippensburg brings people, Hack brings people. We have instant decision days with Ship and Hack each year, sometimes I think more than once. And Phil from Lackawanna came down in the fall, and he'll be here again, I believe, at the beginning of February to answer any questions that students have related to the Lackawanna program. It's just a matter of getting word of mouth out and hoping to catch people, see their eyes somewhere as they're scrolling on their screen. Hey, oh, this thing is happening. So we can always do better, and we'll continue to utilize social media, email, the traditional ways of just word of mouth. Always can improve, but I think we're trying, and we get pretty decent results so far.
Do you know off the top of your head how many students are participating in the Hack and Shippensburg enrollments?
I knew you were going to say that at the end of this line of questioning. Well, I'll definitely email you later for sure. I want to say we maybe somewhere said something like we have students taking 200 credits worth of dual enrollment right now, and that's before we go into the spring. I don't remember if that was last year's cohort or if that was from this year. I'll look into that. I want to say, no, I think it was at our local advisory council meeting. I want to say it's over 200 credits worth of dual enrollment right now our students are taking, but I can pull up those specific numbers. Because again, that's when we talk about career development, getting kids out doing things, whether that's college, whether that's internships, whether that's working somewhere, we're all about getting students where they need to be. So I'm happy to find that data for you. Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other comments or questions to our guidance department about
You're the power. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the committee? Are there any other items from the floor?
That's something I have to mention.
Go ahead.
So we're currently in a contract with Thought Exchange. We just renewed this contract on 11/8. We gave them $26,460. This is a contract that's been on autopilot since November of 2021. It's a contract that automatically renews unless we provide a 60-day notice to cancel prior to renewal with annual 5% increases. I feel like this is not a good contract for us to remain in. This kind of tracks us into this expense unless we're on our game like 2 months ahead of time. I've looked into this. Dr. Johnson said we use Title II federal funds, which is to improve the skills of our teachers and quality of instruction for this expense. But I think it's important to note that federal funds are not free. We all know that tax day is coming, our W-2s are here, and we pay federal taxes as well. So federal funds are not necessarily free, and I don't think that we should be considering wasting them. Now, I haven't made my point on how we're wasting them. But imagine what we could do with $26,000 to improve our teachers' if we weren't doing this. Now, in the calendar year of 24, we used the thought exchange format twice, for 2 questions. And the first one had 16 participants, and the second one had 31 participants. Now, my daughter took a statistics class. Statistics class uses Google Forms. I think there's a lot of technology out there that's cheap or free that we could be utilizing, especially to do a poll of 31 people and 16 people. Now, if you look back at the calendar year that would have been covered by this, we did do a few more, we one in December and 2 in November. So we total polled 109 through our $26,000 investment in the thought exchange in that contract timeframe. So unless we plan on starting to use it more robustly, I think it's something that we should consider eliminating. And that's all. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention so you can start thinking about that. I really think that these contracts, we should have like a max 5-year rule, like not just indefinitely. Any contract we're doing should come back to the board at some point, unlike this one. I request if any contracts are written like this that do come to our attention, that they would be brought to the board. And I would also say that no verbal agreements with a representative of the board, if it wasn't brought before the board. Any contract that is over $100 in value by Pennsylvania law needs to be brought in front of the board. So if someone is looking to get into an agreement with the district, it's not a contract that we have to uphold. So I really suggest that people who are looking to get into business with the district would ensure that their contracts go in front of the board so that they can be paid accordingly. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Booth, for those comments. Any other members from the floor? Do I have a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole? Motion, Mr. Shea, do I have a second? Second, Mr. Corman. There is no discussion. Hearing no further items, I declare the meeting adjourned unless I hear any neighbor abstaining. Okay, the time is 7:57. I appreciate everyone's patience. At this time, we will, yes, we have a board picture to take first. I did want to announce that